Hope I didn't scare you with my shower curtain. Well, anyway, I love Godzilla, and this is a review of Godzilla vs. Kong. Enjoy. Ryan reviews, 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 Ryan reviews. Hello, I'm sorry you had to deal with that song. It's my first YouTube video, and I'm having a lot of fun. My name's Ryan, and welcome to Ryan Reviews. Alright, so as you can tell by the intro and the title and my enthusiasm, we are talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, which I have seen thrice now, and let me tell you, I'm pretty happy with this one. But at the same time, there are some stinky doo-doos that I will be talking about later. Now, before I continue, I did give off my first impressions about a week ago. I was pleasantly surprised with the film. Spoiler-free review. It's pretty good if you can turn off your brain, have some fun, and watch monsters do crazy shit. If your brain is off, I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Unfortunately, not trying to be pretentious or anything, but if your brain is on and you are thinking and analyzing the film and thinking about the decisions that the characters make and what really happens in the movie, it would probably be... Hello. You were just about to hear the score I gave it. It would probably be my exact words. Well, if I gave you it then, you wouldn't want to really watch my video. So I'm going to make the video and then I'll tell you my score at the end. Come on, Ryan. This is me 3 months later, so I have seen it a couple more times since then. And yeah, my thoughts are definitely more refined. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Ryan review. So right off the bat, King Kong is the hero of this story. He's the protagonist. He's who we follow. He goes on the hero's journey, a quest to stop Godzilla and restore balance to the Earth. So it portrays him as such. This is very different from his initial portrayal as a villain, a menace to society, and the humans are just trying to stop him. Now, this can be paralleled in Kong Skull Island, where we have a collection of great human characters. John C. Reilly, Samuel L. Jackson. Those two kind of stand out, where Sam Jackson is trying to kill the beast, and John C. Reilly is just trying to help the beast. And they stand in opposition to get off the island, and Kong isn't really the antagonist of this film. It's more so man versus nature. Samuel L. Jackson kind of acts as the antagonist for a majority of the film as he leads. He's powerful. He's the commander of the unit. He's got his boys, and they're hunting down this monkey and trying to kill him with, by any means necessary. They'll basically kill anyone in their way who is standing up to them. As we see here, he sits down with John Goodman, points the gun at him. And yeah, this is definitely the villain of the film. And they write very good human characters in this film, which is interesting because a lot of the arguments stem from human characters not being well written. And I feel as though this movie did a very good job. As we know, in the end of the film, John C. Reilly comes back home. He's missing at sea for like 50 years, comes back home to his wife and son, and they embrace him with open arms. And it's a very touching, heartfelt ending to this movie and this character's journey. So with that in mind, Kong Skull Island did a very good job at fleshing out believable and likable human characters. Even if you didn't like Samuel L. Jackson's character, because he is kind of the villain in the film, he's still very well written, and he hates the monkey and he wants to kill him. So I thought this movie did a very good job at fleshing out human characters. So, in Kong Skull Island, you have one cool monster with a couple of pretty well-written characters that you follow along and you're watching it from their perspective. Now, in Godzilla King of the Monsters, which you're seeing on screen, you have a bunch of really cool monsters that the audience has come to see. You know, they come to see a big monster clash. But instead of seeing the big monster clash, you're continuously cutting away to your boring, poorly written human characters that you really don't give a shit about. To preface this, my argument isn't against the actors or the actresses. I don't really mind how they played their performance. It's just, they're pretty poorly written characters, and I don't really give a shit about them. So we got the dad. He's looking for his wife and his daughter. So we got the wife and the daughter. They're like wrapped up in some terrorist conspiracy, but it turns out the mom is actually like a mega terrorist and wants the destruction of all humanity, even though she like loves her husband. But she doesn't want her kid to die, and she doesn't want her husband to die, so she's kind of a hypocrite, and that doesn't really make any sense. And then we got, this guy, Dr. Ishiro. He's the Japanese scientist who has a history with Godzilla because he's Japanese. And they kind of just, that's his thing. He's Japanese, and he's a scientist. You don't really know much about him. You don't know about his family or what he stands for. He's a scientist, and he wants Godzilla to succeed, so he kills himself at one point in the film so that Godzilla can live. Pretty honorable death, but, I don't care because I don't know this guy very well. So then we got Game of Thrones villain guy. He's the, lead terrorist, and he's kind of intimidating at first because he's a bad guy, but it turns out he's kind of just a pawn. And he's actually, the main terrorist is the wife of the main character. So you want the main character to succeed, but at the same time his wife's the villain, but he doesn't really care because it's his wife, and it does what? And then this guy's from Game of Thrones, so that's why he's cool, I guess. And then you got this guy at one point in the film, they're like, God, and he's like, Zilla. And he just sort of sits in a chair and snaps out one-liners, and he's supposed to be funny. But it's if two monsters are punching each other and I paid money to see that, I don't really want to cut away to this guy saying a witty one-liner oh, looks like he's in way over his head, and something's over the monster's head. I don't really care. I just want to see the monsters fight. So I'm good. I'm happy if the characters are well written. You don't need 10, 20 characters that are all well written. See Kong Skull Island. You only need 1 or 2 characters that are well written, and I care about them. I care about Sam L. Jackson because from his perspective, this monkey monster killed all of his friends and his entire squad. And from John C. Reilly's perspective, I also care about him and his journey, and I hope that he's okay too. So I'm conflicted, and I'm along for the ride, and I love to see the monsters fight. But I'm enjoying the human characters and the human drama and their struggle, because ultimately I'm a human being and I relate to those characters. So moving on to Kong vs. Godzilla, the studio, they decided the audience, they don't care about well-written human characters. They just care to see the monsters fight, so we don't really care anymore. Let's not even try. Those crappy characters from the last movie, let's bring them back. Their story's not finished. Millie Bobby Brown needed to reunite with her dad, and now she's on a quest to find a conspiracy theory guy and put a stop to Godzilla's rampage. I don't know why she wants to do that. I mean, she saw Godzilla in the last movie and knows that Godzilla's a good guy, so I guess that's her motivation, is just to prove to people that Godzilla's a good guy, and she'll risk her life for that. She'll risk her comfy house. She'll sacrifice everything for Godzilla, because the Japanese guy in the last film, he did the same thing. She didn't even know that guy at all, but she's, I guess, walking in his footsteps. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So you got other characters, of course. You got the villain. You got another Japanese guy who also dies tragically and has somewhat of a connection to Godzilla, and literally connected to Godzilla. They put him in the mecha suit. And, there's a part in the movie where the bad guy's giving a really cool speech, and Mechagodzilla goes crazy and attacks him because he's lost control. and he swats him real good, and the human characters they're watching this happen. They're watching this human being right in front of them get utterly decimated, murdered, and killed. And the other guy they don't even know about. They don't even know this guy exists, really. He dies for Godzilla. And, they all cough. They stand up. Someone just died right in front of them. And the one guy's like, hey, man, I wanted to hear the rest of that speech. The tragic thing is that Bernie, he was probably my favorite character. There's the A plot and the B plot. The A plot is Kong and Co. going to receive something on the hero's journey. And the B plot is Bernie, Millie Bobby Brown, and the annoying friend on an adventure to uncover the truth. He is a conspiracy theory lover, and he loves to uncover the truth. That makes sense. He'll risk his life for it. That makes sense. But when you say things like, oh man, I really wanted to hear the rest of that speech, and not like, oh my gosh, did you, like, they don't even react, like a person would. They just deliver a punchline. So I thought that was a little out of place. So you might be saying, Ryan, what about the deaf girl? She's cool, and she's important. And yeah, you're right. She is cool, and she's important. She talks to King Kong and helps him calm down, and she's relevant. And yeah, she's pretty well written too. But, outside of that, she doesn't really say anything because she's deaf. So it's funny that the best character in the movie is the one that can't say anything. Interesting. So there are two other characters that can't speak, and they're probably the stars of the show. They're Godzilla and Kong. They don't say anything the entire movie. Spoiler alert. They don't speak. They don't, say Godzilla wants me to fight lone battles,
Godzilla says that I should learn to fight my own battles,
So in conclusion of this part, the human characters, they're pretty bad. I don't think the studio tried at all. But they did try, and they did exceed my expectations for the monster madness, Godzilla vs. Kong. And without further ado, we will talk about them now. So the monsters and monster effects are, without a better word, jaw-dropping. I do have some issues. We'll get that in a second. But generally speaking, the effects on Kong are amazing. You see, his fur gets wet. It looks wet. His fur gets covered in snow. It looks like it's covered in snow. The other creature effects, these little bird thingies, they're cool. They're scary. Godzilla and Kong, they're scary. They look like they're on the screen. They look like they're firing laser beams to the center of the earth, and the chasms of the abyss are fire and brimstone coming from the earth. It's just awesome. Literally awesome. You pay your money to see this film, you get what you paid for. These monster effects are second to none, and I was just amazed the whole way through. Not just the monster effects, but the other special effects, the laser ships, the cannons, the freight cruisers, the locations that they're on. At one point, you see some cities getting blown up. Godzilla and Kong, they have their different fighting styles. Kong, he hides behind buildings, as you saw there. He uses tools, throws stuff at Godzilla, where Godzilla, he's just objectively stronger. He's more powerful. He has this ranged beam attack. But it's just awesome to see Kong work around that and try his best to fight this stronger foe. One particular scene I loved, even though it was ridiculous, they were fighting on plane air carriers, and it was awesome. They're throwing planes around and stuff, and it was just cool. My problem with the monster effects, though, is the use of Godzilla's laser. Atomic breath. This is like 5 minutes in the film, and he's already used about 3 of them on normal civilians. Comparing that to Godzilla King of the Monsters, this is about an hour into the film. We as an audience know what he's about to do, but the buildup is insane. The payoff, bam! Boom! You waited an hour for this, but still, and we see the destructive force of this, blows up buildings, everyone's terrified, and yeah, this is an hour in the film, rather than like 5 minutes in. Going back to Godzilla 2014 with Bryan Cranston, this is the first and pretty much only time he uses atomic breath, like the end of the movie. Boom! Bam! So sick. Evaporated. So this is Shin Godzilla. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let it play itself. But yeah, just watch how they utilize the laser here. So my problem is that they use the atomic breath just way too much in this movie. He throws it out like it's nothing. This goes back to a Mr. Plinkett argument on his Star Wars review, a very iconic review. I'm going to let him speak for himself here. I'll link the video fully in the description. But basically replace the word lightsaber with breath and you're here.
The very first thing that happens in episode 1. We can't go 5 minutes without them taking out the lightsaber. They do it when they hear a noise, for Christ's sake. Could have just been some kind of industrial accident that happened in the cargo bay. Don't you guys feel like fools now? Almost every scene requires the use of a lightsaber. Now I know they're Jedi and all, but I just kind of equate this to dangling a shiny object in front of a cat. You gotta try to keep the audience interested in the scene if it's not working. Or if you don't know how to make it work.
So with the atomic breath, right? You use it in the first 5 minutes of your film. You got to use it all the time. You know, there's no weight to him using atomic breath. And on top of that, it's canonical or canon for him to have like sort of a recharge period on his breath. This movie, they just kind of throw it out the window. He can just breathe as much as he wants. He even breathes to the center of the earth, and Kong like looks up at him from the center of the earth somehow. He can like see him from the center of the earth, and he climbs up through the center of the earth, and it's just kind of dumb. I wish they used his breath more sparingly, because they kind of took away all the weight to it, and it was just kind of sad. So now we're going to talk about the plot, the hero's journey that King Kong goes on. He's the main character. He has to beat Godzilla and restore balance to the earth. We've talked about the human characters. We've talked about the monsters. But let's get into the plot, the pacing of the film, and we'll close it off here. All right, so as you know, the movie starts off with Kong. He's the good guy. He's the hero, and we're just shown, you know, how he's living his best life. He is in an enclosure, so he's not living his greatest life. He seeks, you know, to be free, and he seeks out his family. Meanwhile, Godzilla, as we saw before, you know, using his atomic breath on civilians, pretty silly. But, you know, he's destroying some stuff, which is very weird. While this is happening, Bernie he's trying to, like, expose the secrets of this facility. And the bad guy, that's the bad guy. He's got some clear bad guy vibes. But after the Godzilla incident, he's like, yo, we need to put this thing down. We need to take out Godzilla. So he goes to this author, played by Alex Skarsgård. I don't really know the character's name. I forgot. Honestly, I've seen it 4 times. But he's like, hey, man, help me out. And Alex Skarsgård's like, no, my brother died. But then at the same time, he's like, okay, whatever. Yeah, I'll help you out. So he helps him out, but he needs to go get King Kong. So he goes to Eileen, the scientist lady. She's like, hey, man, I really need your help. And Eileen's like, I don't know, it seems pretty crazy. But then she's like, you know what? Okay, whatever. And that's kind of how the humans progress the plot. They come up with like a wacky idea. They put Kong on the air carrier, and the movie kind of just takes off. Godzilla shows up. They have a little fight. Bang, bada, boom. But they damage it, so in a way, like, they can't move anymore afterwards, because if they do, Godzilla will come back. So instead they just fly him, which they kind of should have done the entire time, but they didn't. that's okay. They're flying him now, and he's all cold, and he doesn't want to go any further, but the little blind, deaf girl, mute girl, shows up, and she's like, your family's in there, and Godzilla's like, okay. And that's, it just kind of keeps going like that, where they have a wacky idea, and the characters, they just sort of go along with it because they have to make it move. So this scene, I showed earlier, Kong's at the center of the earth, like the hollow earth theory, and he's falling down a cliff, and he's so scared, but he's here now. This is his new home, and the humans all survive, and that's all said and done. This whole time, while they're doing King Kong's plot, Godzilla's plot is also developing. Millie Bobby Brown, with no motivation, wants to leave her house behind and go save Godzilla. So she comes with her friend, who kind of also has no motivation, because they're got to track down Bernie, the crazy guy, and they want to save Godzilla. And this is all happening within the first hour of the film. I might add that there. So then, in the center of the earth, King Kong finds this hammer thing, and you think like, oh, he can use that to beat Godzilla. But it's actually like a charging device, and he hooks it up to the center of the earth, and it starts like glowing, and it's like some radiation. Godzilla doesn't like this very much. He starts blasting the center of the earth, and everyone's like, oh god, ah. And then this is where King Kong can like look from the center of the earth all the way up and kind of see Godzilla up there. And now that they have this like energy source, the lady, she's like, one of the ladies is like, hey, I was a bad guy all along. And she tries to run away with the power source. But instead of like taking the power source, she just like transmit the power source somehow, like with their GPS or some shit. And King Kong doesn't like her very much because she's like a bad guy, and starts shooting at her. And then BAM! King Kong smashes her. No, not yet. No. Whoop. Bam! So they want this power source because they need it to fuel Mechagodzilla and make him more powerful. And because Mechagodzilla, they're going to use him to beat Godzilla, but that's why Godzilla was pissed off to begin with, because they were building Mechagodzilla. So then they have this epic fight with Kong and Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and they beat him, and then they're like, yeah, you know what, we could be friends now. And that's basically the movie. So, yeah, that's basically the movie. The plot. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. They kind of just move it in a way that it moves as quick as possible, which for some people, that's great. That's called poor pacing, though. If your characters are in like 10 different locations and 3 action scenes have happened and it's only been 1 hour into the movie, and like there's like 10 characters and they're all in different parts of the world, it's crazy. It just moves so quick. And this is attributed due to, as I said, characters just sort of going along with it. Like, yeah, whatever. I want you to stop writing this book and come out and go to the center of the earth. And Alex Skarsgård's like, okay, sure. And then he goes to Eileen. He's like, hey, I want you to take the monkey out of captivity. I know he's safe here, but just take him out. Let's go to the other side of the earth and go to the center of the earth together. And she's like, okay, sure. It just kind of moves like that. Apparently they were old friends, Eileen and Alex Skarsgård, but my old friend showed up and asked me to take my giant monkey out of his safety cage and take him to the center of the earth. I'd be a little bit reluctant, but nobody seems to really care. Or, Millie Bobby Brown asks her friend with the van, he's like, hey, can you drive me to Florida? And he's like, okay, sure. It just kind of moves like that. And I thought it was kind of dumb, the plot. So, I guess to summarize my review, I thought the characters were shit. I thought the plot was pretty quick and dumb. And I thought the monsters were cool. So if you came to see the monsters, great. 10 out of 10 movie. 8 out of 10. Whatever. It was awesome. It was really fun and exciting. But if you came to, analyze something and look at something critically, it was pretty bad. I give it like a 5 out of 10, genuinely. And I've seen a lot of Godzilla films, so it was okay. I'm a little disappointed. I wish they put more effort into the writing and the plot, basically. And I would love for them to have more focus on the monsters as well. I thought that was great, but I don't know why you can't do both. These movies cost millions and millions of dollars, and you can't write like a compelling character, not a single one. So yeah, it was pretty bad. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you did, I appreciate it. I want to thank my Patreon. I only have one. That's my mom. Thanks, Mom, for paying for things for me for a lot of my life. And without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry if the quality or editing was pretty shitty. I'm working on it. It's my first video, so please be patient with me. And thank you very much. Give me a like, give me a follow, a subscribe, and I'll have more videos like this in the near future. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.